Hello and welcome to part 15 of the mod making series for locked loot containers. So in this one, I was doing a few hours of, more like an hour or two in reality of like researching some of the scripts and stuff that I could try and pull from and pull some inspiration from on how I want to do some of these things. And I was reading a lot about the projectile stuff, and initially I was thinking it was going to be, just how it always is. Initially I was thinking it was going to be pretty difficult, but I'm not necessarily saying it's not going to be quote-unquote difficult, but more difficult than some of these other things. But I'm looking at some of the stuff, and I'm realizing that it might not be that big of a deal like I thought it would be. As I expected to some degree, which is good. So I was looking at the Daggerfall missile script, which is where arrows and stuff like spell projectiles are created from. And I well, there's so many things about Unity that I don't know about, and I'm still learning every time I work with this stuff. Extremely useful things to know. But I didn't know mono behavior had a function in it. I don't know what you call it, like an event sort of handler sort of deal. That basically, if your game object has a collider attached to it or a rigid body, I don't know what rigid body necessarily means, but I kind of have an idea what collider is. But if it has one of those things attached to it, essentially, then you could do these, and you could do many things, but in this case, you could do these two things: on collision enter and on trigger enter, which are basically kind of like the event handlers, but they're in the Unity engine kind of part itself, instead of created by our own stuff, like down here, like that's a custom event handler down there. These are like inbuilt event handlers for stuff, for like model behavior objects, game objects. And what these basically do is they detect when a game object's collider or rigid body, in this case it would be collider, intersects or goes into another collider object, another game object collider. Which is exactly what we want, is we want to detect when our chest's collider intersects or whatever, enters into the collider of another game object, in this case the Daggerfall missiles themselves, like the arrows and the spells. And I still don't know how I'll do the AoE thing, but at least for now, just the missiles and the spell projectiles and the arrows. But since our chest is going to be a mono behavior inheriting game object, it will be able to use these things. So, at least in theory, as well as the fact that the Daggerfall billboard object helper, when you make a Daggerfall billboard, if it detects that it has a custom activation, which ours will, like registered, then it will assign it a collider, box collider object. That primarily being there so it could detect when you click on it, or when a ray hits it to tell that you activated it. But we could use this, at least this is my assumption, my hope, that we can use this. I'm pretty sure we can, to do the same thing but with other projectiles. So we could have our chest object detect when it intersects with another projectile, so we could do whatever stuff we wanted to do with that, like trigger a trap or damage the chest potentially, or whatever, just anything, anything we particularly want to do. Same thing with the spell projectiles and stuff. So that's really, really handy, and I should be able to just copy a lot of behavior from this Daggerfall missile part for the on collision enter and on trigger enter thing, and basically do what I want to do with it without hopefully much issue or anything, since it already has a collider attached to it in our case. And even then, it wouldn't be that hard to make your own collider. but in this case, it made it easy for us. So that's what I plan to do for the projectile part, projectile interaction part, which is pretty cool that I was able to. I mean, it took me a little bit to kind of be like, oh, okay, have some of it kind of click. And I obviously haven't done anything with it yet, and I haven't tested it yet, so that'll be the important part to see if it actually is working. It will work like I'm expecting it to. But that's cool that I actually have an idea of what I'm going to do with that. But first, the thing that I'm going to probably do is the thing with the activating the chest while you have an open spell effect ready to cast. So that should be a little bit more straightforward. So I'm going to do that first, and then hopefully afterward I will start the work on making the collision detection thing with projectiles work out, and see where that goes. And then maybe if we do both of these, I'll actually do some testing in the same video, but we'll have to see. But yeah, there will be a pause. I will do that stuff, and then I will come back and try and explain what I did, basically, as has been the theme the past few episodes, which I'll probably continue doing, honestly, because I feel more productive doing it like this. But yeah, I will see you in a little bit. Okay, so I'm back, and I'm pretty sure I got the open effect stuff done, for now at least. There's nothing I could really see that I might have missed that I'm basically replicating from the the player activate and the Daggerfall action door effect, or whatever you want to call it, the way it does the open effect detection, which is actually pretty simple, or it's simpler than I expected, just like it always is. Well, just like it generally is. I'm not gonna say always. But basically, it just, when you click on a thing, or when you click on whatever, when it goes to the actual, like, activate thing, with the open effect, it just, it's like the first thing that it checks for before all the other stuff with what mode you're in and stuff and such, is it does, in this case, it does either handle lock effect or handle open effect. And then it passes it the action door object, in this case. And then it goes down here to the handle open effect. And then it just checks the player, or I guess, yeah, in this case it does the player. Like, it probably could, in theory, be any entity, even though I don't think the AI even has the capacity to try to do that. At least not right now. But in this case, it just checks the player's active effect manager, or whatever it's called, and then it looks for the incumbent effect of open on the player. And then if that is null, like it doesn't exist, then it just passes false, and then it does the other stuff in that that above method with the activation stuff. But then if it is not null, like there is an open effect on the player, then it does the trigger open effect, which is a part of the open spell effect itself, which in this case it does stuff specific to the action door stuff. So this would not work, so we had to just ignore this basically, because it's specific for that. But then after that it also returns true, which then it tells it to return instead of do the other stuff. But so in our case, we just had to basically copy most of that behavior, but instead with the handle open effect, we don't do the whatever it was called. We don't do the trigger open effect. We do our own thing. And in this case, it's just the basic stuff that we did before with the button clicking. It does the exact same thing there, but in this case, you could just click the chest while you have the open effect active, and it'll happen. Without having to do the little dialogue thing or whatever. And then at the end, At the end, after doing that, it makes sure to do the open effect itself that we have here, and cancel it, which is a function of the spell effect, which every spell effect, I believe, has this kind of cancel effect thing at the end, at least the incumbent ones, I think, which causes it to basically just, you know, stop existing or whatever. It goes off the character that had the effect initially. So in this case, we cancel it, you know, manually. So then that will, after that's all done, then the incumbent open effect will go away. It won't just stay on the player, like, so they can click other ones. They'll actually have to cast it again if they want it. And then it returns true. So once it returns true, it goes back up. It goes back up here. And if it returns true, then it returns after that. So then the rest of the stuff doesn't execute as well, which is what we want. So it's actually, like I said, a fairly simple thing. There's, like I said, complete baseline stuff right now for this. It doesn't have any of the extra logic that I'm gonna have and all that stuff. It's just baseline, but this should, in theory, work fine. And I only had to add this up here in the using, the magic and effects.magic effects thing for the reference to the open class, object, whatever, the spell. And yeah, that was it for the open effect. Haven't tested it, as I said, but we'll do that later. And with that, now that I have that done, at least hopefully done, I'm going to save that. And then I am now going to move on to the missile projectile thing that I was talking about, which is going to be slightly more complicated, but just something I've never done, but it shouldn't be too difficult, I think. But yeah, I will be right back, and hopefully if I get that stuff completed, or at least partially completed, whatever, worked on that, then I'll explain that, and then I'll probably end the video for tonight, and yeah, but yeah, I'll see you after a brief pause. Okay, I am back way too long later, and well, I got, I guess, a little bit more done here. So I basically copy and pasted a lot of the stuff about this on collision enter and on trigger enter stuff, the mono behavior related, collision collider related stuff from Daggerfall missile. As you can see, I removed a lot of stuff from the do collision part, and I added a bunch of stuff as well that I think makes sense for what I'm trying to do specifically. But yeah, after reading the Unity documentation, like, some of this might not even work the way I'm expecting it to here, such as especially the on trigger enter part, because apparently if both collider objects that are whatever intersecting with each other in this case have the is trigger attribute as true, apparently it doesn't work. Like, only one can have it or something like that. I don't know how I can deal with that. If that is the case, I don't know. As well as I don't think that our chest has a rigid body. It just has a colliders. Not, like I said, I'm not sure what a rigid body really is. The arrows, you know, the projectiles do have a rigid body and a collider and such. So yeah, I honestly have no clue if any of this is gonna work for this specific thing. I just have to do testing, I guess. Really, there's not much I can really explain here besides just, like, because I don't know if it'll work at all. Like, all this could be complete BS in the end. You know, like, it makes fairly logical sense to me, but that doesn't mean it'll actually work in the end in this case. And the projectile part, at least for arrows and spells that are just like what is it, single target at range and even area at range and stuff, seem fine with their actual impact where they hit. That seems fine, but for the AoE detection, like if our chest object gets within the AoE of like a area of effect spell in some way, that detection, I am I did some reading and I'm still not sure how we might do that, detect that. I mean, hopefully I'll have a somewhat something just come up and just give me an idea of how I'll do it, but right now I'm really not sure. Just looking at how the impact AoE thing kind of works, I'm not sure how I can do much with that right now. But, at least if I'm expecting how it might work the way I want it to, it should work. But I have a pretty good feeling that it's probably not gonna work right out of the box here when I actually do testing for this. But yeah, we'll just have to see. I didn't put any extra behavior or anything yet, just because one, it's getting very late now, and I want to do that DOS recording before it gets way too late. And I've just been doing this coding like for hours today. I mean, mostly just kind of daydreaming and messing around, but still. So yeah, like more progress than kind of expected, but also less at the same time. Um, this projectile thing is like it's for right now. It's not like 100% necessary, but we'll have to see if we could get it working again. I hope I could get it working, and I don't know. I might have to do some messing around and such after testing and everything to see if I could, and probably asking questions in the forums and stuff like that to see if I could get it to work the way I'm expecting. But yeah, that's basically what I got done today was mostly the the handling the open effect thing, which I think should work fine, and at least some of the base stuff for the potential projectile and collision detection with stuff like arrows and spell effects and such, spell projectiles and such. But that I'm not certain if it will work or not. That is a definite thing. But yeah. Besides that, I think for this episode or whatever, I think I'm good for tonight working on this. At least I hope tomorrow when it's earlier and I have a bit more energy, hopefully I'll be able to do more with this collision stuff, possibly the AoE stuff. If I get inspiration for that, but if not, then I'll just do the projectile stuff. Try and get the rest of this for at least the base testing part, and then test out all the other stuff that I've done so far in the Unity editor and see where it goes, see what works, see what doesn't, try and fix it, and hopefully get most of it working at least. But yeah, for right now, we will do that most likely tomorrow, the other stuff. But for today, that's it for me. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope it was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed.